Now we are just moments away from one of the biggest races on the triathlon calendar, the European Ironman Championships here in Frankfurt. And to talk about the race, we're rather lucky to have an absolute statistician of triathlon racing with us. So Thorsten Radde has come to join us.
Hey again.
Thanks for coming along and chatting to us. Now, to get into the nuts and bolts of this race, we're going to look at some of the pro athletes who are going to be racing here, because you always get a very strong field because there's a chance of Kona slots. There's also a really large prize purse on offer too. So we've got no idea who's going to be winning the male and female races, but that's what we're going to chat about. So before we get into that, we're going to talk about, Thorsten has his own specific tri-rating system to give us an idea of who he thinks might win the race. So can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Well, first of all, it's a big collection of just race results from races, Ironman, Challenge, 70.3 across the globe. And that's a big database that I have, so I can analyze who had the best performances, try to figure out which are fast courses, which are slow courses, and then build predictions of previous results. I can build predictions that at least show part of the picture on what's happening on race day. And I should add that for me, this just helps me build kind of a mental picture of how the race will develop, who we're going to see at the front and who will be further behind, but we still need to keep track of. And then I can compare that mental picture that I have to what's actually happening on race day. It's always exciting to watch any race, and especially with a field that we have here in Frankfurt, with the number of athletes, with the number of Kona slots, with the money on the line. It's going to be a fantastic race on Sunday. Well, I mean, we still have a bit of a discussion who's actually going to show up on race day, so there's always a bit of movement in the final days before the race, who's actually going to show up. A couple of the ladies that were in Ireland and didn't have a good race were rumored to maybe show up in Frankfurt, but apparently they wouldn't. Yeah, Lindsay Corbin and Anja Ippach, both of them, from what I heard, not racing on Sunday. So if we look at the field that's left, then there's one clear favorite, but she also has a bit of a question mark next to her. That's Sarah True from the US, who was second here last year, who had a great race in Kona. On paper, she should be the favorite for the race. Super strong swimmer, super strong runner. She's also shown in Kona that she can bike much better than what she did in Frankfurt here last year. But yeah, she did Ironman Cairns 8 weeks ago or something, and then had issues on the run and couldn't finish the race. So yeah, that's the question mark for her. How will she have recovered from Cairns, and are there ongoing issues that haunt her on Sunday again? But on paper, she should be the one that we're looking to. But from a race dynamic perspective, she should be first in T1, then she's going to lose some time, and there's other ladies that are likely to pull through on the bike. And then if Sarah has her typical run, she should retake the lead, but there's going to be a lot of back and forth.
And when we say her typical run, because she does have the course record here, doesn't she? She set that last
2:54 last year, and she ran sub 3 in Kona too, so we'll see how that turns out.
So we would put our money on Sarah being able to run her way into, if not the podium, perhaps the win, right?
Yeah, and the point that I have is the second loop on the run. It's a 4-loop run course, so between 10K and 20K, that's when the big shifts are likely to occur in the female race, when Sarah catches up to the people that biked stronger than her.
Okay.
And it'll also give us a good indication of whether she's going to run as well again as she did the last couple of times.
Okay, so it's interesting to know. So you're saying that 10 to 20K the run is the time to really focus on the women's race?
Yeah, that's when it looked like to me as if we have 3, 4, 5 athletes potentially within minutes of each other, one falling back, one moving forward. So that could be an interesting point.
So let's say that's our potential winner locked in. Let's look at second and third. Who would you look to as the next?
Well, I mean, the dynamics of the race would indicate that some of the stronger bikers are going to be a big factor here. Obviously, Kim Morrison, who had a great race in Texas, was even putting time into Daniela Ryf on the bike in Texas. She's my likely T2 leader.
Sure.
Then you also have the hometown favorite, Daniela, used to be Semler, now it's Bleimehl. A nice name for the English-speaking people to get across, right?
Thanks for the pronunciation.
So I have Dani based on the pure numbers, maybe just a minute behind Kim on the swim and maybe a minute behind on the bike. But those differences are so small that race dynamics are certainly going to play a factor. If Dani is just slightly behind Kim on the bike. I would expect her to put in a huge effort to ride up to her and then maybe team up with her to work together at the front of the race
away from the rest of the athletes.
and build time into the others.
So on the women's side, let's nail your colours to the mast. Who are your top 3 predictions?
Well,
on your predictions.
On my predictions, I've got Sarah in 1, I've got Dani now would be in 2, and I've got Jen, I think, in 3.
Okay.
But it's going to be real close. And you mentioned Kona slots before. Daniela is out of that because she won Ironman Italy last year, so she's already safe for Kona. Yeah, and then if we look at the press conference, I mean, I was seeing the other 3 ladies that were up there, Jen, Kim, and Sarah True, 3 ladies that all should belong in Kona, I think. Yeah. But there's only 2 Kona slots going to be available, so that'll be a tight race.
Battle.
Plus the rookies, so you never know how that turns out.
Right, so we've covered all of the women for now. Let's move on to that men's race, which is going to be a real cracker, isn't it?
Yeah,
hopefully.
There's a lot of headlines in the German newspapers. I don't know how much you've been able to see.
No, I haven't seen any, but I imagine,
they're really building that race up, the Showdown in Frankfurt and everything like that, and it's likely going to be the biggest race outside of Kona.
Because those 3 athletes, Jan Frodeno, Sebastian Kienle and Patrick Lange, have never all raced here together in Germany, is that right?
They've never raced together in Germany, I think. I think the 3 races, other than maybe a couple 70.3s that they did together, they only did race together in Kona, but there was always something where something went wrong for one of them.
So it's a big deal for the home crowd to be able to see it.
Yes. Yeah, and it's big excitement. I mean, Patrick originally lives in this area, grew up here, just maybe 20 kilometers.
So he's almost the hometown favorite.
The hometown guy. Yeah, it's his home race. He's moved to Austria after his engagement now, but is still being the home favorite. And he never was able to have a good race here in Frankfurt. Last year. He was 3rd when Frodo put a lot of time into him on the run. The year before he had some injury struggles and was 5th or 6th, I think. So he really wants to show that he's a factor in Frankfurt and that he can run well outside of Kona too.
Yeah, because obviously that's where he's always ran the fastest. So how do you see the race dynamic working in the men's race?
Going to be really interesting. I think the key factor of how the race is going to develop for Frodo is going to be how the swim turns out.
In this lovely lake.
I mean, last year he said he saw Patrick behind him just a couple seconds when they had the Australian exit that's going to be down here after about half of the swim course.
And did that make him really push harder?
Then he decided not to push too hard. And just see what's going to happen the rest of the day. But if he manages to build up a lead in the swim, which he indicated he'll go hard on the swim this year. If he manages to build a lead, I don't see him waiting for Patrick, and I don't see Patrick catching up to him on the bike. And we might have a race like the first year that Frodo won here, when he went off the front, had the fastest bike, swim and run all across the board, and just was off the charts for the whole day. So that might be one thing that could happen. If Patrick is able to swim with him, then they'll probably stick together for at least a good part of the bike. And then Sabi's going to be the big factor. As usual, he's going to lose a couple of minutes. We'll see how many.
But hopefully make that up on the bike.
2 would be good. 4 or 5 would be probably the expected gap. And then, as usual, he should make up time on the bike. And then it'll be interesting to see what happens when he passes Patrick, and when and if he passes Frodo. Who's trying to stick with him, or who wants to maybe team up with him to put time into the others.
But they're not the only 3 people in this race. It's a big field, so let's talk about some other key figures that are in the bike race, the race, sorry, but particularly in the bike perhaps.
Well, I mean, again, then if you take these 3 out of the equation for Kona slots, because they already have their slots and just need to validate them with a finish here, you've got 4 male Kona slots, and you've got...
So there's another 10, race within the race?
12? Yeah. You've got at least 10 or 12 other people that potentially could be in the running for a Kona slot, and that could make things interesting. One factor that we should mention is Joe Skipper, who also already has a Kona slot.
Of course.
So he can just hit it out of the park and see what happens. I would love to see him swim well, as he indicated he has in the last couple of months, and then really go for it on the bike and still be able to run well, because in his good races he always it looked to me as if he either consciously or by pacing strategy held a little bit on the bike, and then was able to pull through with a good run.
Well, Joe Skipper always has a fantastic marathon, in my opinion.
Yeah, unless he completely annihilated himself on the bike.
And any other key athletes that you maybe spring to mind that could?
Well, if you look at the Kona slots, you've got a couple of German dudes, Franz Löschke, who was second in Barcelona by just a couple seconds, missed the Kona slot there. You've got Patrick Dirksmeyer, you've got a bunch of other German dudes, you've got Emilio, I'm probably going to butcher his name, Aguayo, from Spain, who was second in Ironman Lanzarote. And I mean, Franz and those are athletes that has just 1 or 2 Ironman finishes, so also hard to predict. And also, you never really know what you're going to get from them on race day. So the more established athletes might pull through. Matt Russell is looking for a Kona slot. Also, probably someone that we're not going to see in the live coverage, because he'll lose time on the swim. He'll work his way through the field, probably lose time to the front too on the bike, and then hopefully pull through with a strong run. There are 6 already pre-qualified athletes, and you have 4 more Kona slots. So potentially Kona could go
all the way to the top 10.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. There's not many races where that's happened.
Nah, I think that's none. The slots rolled quite far in Mar del Plata, I think to 6th or 8th there, but it could potentially roll even further here.
The girls will be jealous, won't they? Only 2 slots for them, but and we touched on that slightly. So the slots allocated are 2 for the men, 2 for the women. There's 2 more floating slots,
right?
But they're based on the number of athletes who start the race, right? So the men's field at the moment is looking much larger in numbers than the women's field. Therefore, those 2 slots will go proportionally to the men's field.
Yeah, and the difference is so big with the fields that we have that even 1 or 2 canceling won't make much of a difference. I mean, we'll go to the pro meeting and have a look how many actually cancel, but yeah, that would have to be like 40 men not showing up on race day, so and that's not going to happen.
4 slots for the
so
men.
4 slots for the men is 99% certain, if I understand the math right, that Ironman is doing there.
Well, that has been fascinating, especially the discussion about the men's slots, right?
Yeah, we'll see how that turns out on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, potentially top 10 could get somebody qualified for Kona, and a wide open race in the women's too. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, so please hit that thumb up like button. Find the globe on screen to subscribe and get all the other videos on our channel. And if you want to see a video that we have done about the course preview of Ironman Frankfurt, well, you can find that
down here.
Right there.